Good evening, everybody. This is Transposition Sports. I'm Carly Chardonnay Webb. And just a reminder, thanks to Lynn Conway, you can check your fantasy team anytime, anywhere, or you can make that one last fantasy trade when you really ought to be paying attention to the Sunday sermon. You have a transgender woman to thank for that. At the top of sports tonight, of course, that horrible ruling that came out of the Court for Arbitration in Sport on Wednesday. Leah Thomas's bid to challenge the World Aquatics regulations, the total ban on transgender women, ran into a procedural roadblock. That is what happened here. It was a procedural call that led to this thing being put asunder and her losing her bid. How much of a catch 22 is this for the 2022 NCAA champion? It's a huge one. As you recall, 500-yard freestyle NCAA championship 2022 Atlanta, Georgia. Leah Thomas became the first transgender student athlete to win a Division One national title. How messed up is Tyler Pilar explained it all.
For sport in general. Today, the Court of Arbitration of Sport released a decision dismissing Leah Thomas's case. Leah is a transgender woman and athlete who competed for the University of Pennsylvania. In 2022, she became the first transgender athlete to win an NCAA D1 championship. Leah became the subject of international debate and fury and vitriol, vicious transphobia rearing its head. During that season, World Aquatics and USA Swimming increased their restrictions for transgender athletes, effectively banning trans women from competing in the women's category. And so Leah and her legal team made a challenge against that ban. But today, the Court of Arbitration of Sports dismissed her case altogether, basically on a technicality. They said because Leah is not registered in World Aquatics, she has no standing to challenge World Aquatics policy. But in order to be registered in World Aquatics, you actually have to register through USA Swimming. But what does USA Swimming say? You have to be registered by World Aquatics. You see, this is an infinite loop, a catch-22, and that's the point. There is no way for Leah or any other athlete to even enter the conversation, much less be able to compete. This dismissal of this case means that somebody can't even try to appeal the case. Because in order to appeal a case, you have to have already won the case. To me, this is even more than adding salt to the wounds. We started with having a pretty much categorical ban on trans women in the women's category, and now we're saying we can't even challenge it. And in order to challenge that categorical ban, you have to be allowed to play, but the ban stops you from being able to do that. Make it make sense. I'm devastated by the Court of Arbitration's decision. Without question, this is discriminatory and harmful not only to trans women and trans athletes, but to all athletes. This does not even allow those athletes a voice. And without a voice, there is little chance for any kind of justice. I need all of you, but especially my allies, to hear this. This is an attack on body autonomy. This is a policing of all women's bodies. This sets us back decades. This is all of our fight. And this month is Pride Month. Yes, we can celebrate, but do not forget that Pride began as a protest.
Reaction from Hudson Taylor, founder and executive director at Athlete Alley, quote, "For decades, the International Olympic Committee and almost all Olympic international federations have required athletes to arbitrate disputes at CAS. By dismissing Leah Thomas's legal challenge against World Aquatics, the CAS has denied her fundamental right to access an effective remedy for acts that violate her human rights. This is a sad day for sports and for anyone who believes that trans athletes should have the opportunity for their experiences of discrimination to be heard and adjudicated like everyone else." So overall, what does this mean? Simply put, it means that a lot more bans beyond World Aquatics will be affirmed by the CAS under this bizarre catch-22 because of the athletes involved. World Aquatics is not the only world governing body, especially as the Olympics draw close, that organize this ban. Another one is the Union Cycliste Internationale, the world governing body for cycling. They instituted their ban not long after World Aquatics did, and the reason why they did it was this person, Austin Killips. All because Austin Killips won a cyclocross race in 2022 and then followed up with a win on the road in 2023, and that led to what I call the Austin Killips rule. That's what I call the UCI ban. Here, You see Austin Phillips in the snow at Hartford, Connecticut, finishing third at the USA Cyclocross Championships. Affect even college sports here in the United States because of the NCAA's new rules the upcoming rules regarding the NCAA's policy. Starting with the 2024-2025 academic year, the National Collegiate Athletic Association will tie eligibility for transgender women to the rules of the world or national governing bodies in question. So in short, if you belong to a national, if you say run track and field, like a certain like a certain All-American did this past year, Sadie Schreiner of Rochester Institute of Technology in upstate New York, you will not be allowed to compete because of the World Athletics ban, similar to the World Aquatics one. We're gonna have more on the good side of things coming up. But first, I want you to check this out.
Transphobia for a stronger America. By allowing biological males to compete in women's sports, we are placing our daughters in danger every time they step onto the field. This hearing is about protecting women. Protecting women.
And America really hates cheaters. That is why beating women in women's sports is so obnoxious to the American public. It normalizes and encourages the terrible reality and tragedy of children mutilating themselves.
You mean by encouraging these kids to play on an athletic team that doesn't match their actual sex, you may be sending them down this path in which they might wind up killing themselves?
Absolutely. In addition to using cross-sex hormones or puberty blockers, that actually sets off many latent mental health conditions.
Today we have something called gender affirming care in our country, which is really cutting off the body parts of people.
Cutting off the body parts.
In order to make them feel like they're another gender, which is completely wrong.
It's not just a matter of people who pretend to be girls or women who are biological males moving into girls and women's sports to take a place, but isn't there an issue of the difference in strength and the issue of safety?
I don't want to be considered a bigot or a transphobe. In March of 2022, female swimmers from around the country and I were forced to compete at NCAA's against Leah, formerly Will Thomas. Just allowing a male into their sorority house, watching them as they shower and undress, walking around in the vein of being explicit here, but again, walking around erect.
A
6'4", 22-year-old male who is fully intact with male genitalia.
What more can Congress do to ensure that the Biden administration is not able to radically alter Title IX?
This chamber, as well as the upper chamber, should consider passing legislation specifically to keep sex separated and distinct by biological sex.
Transgenderism must be eradicated from public life entirely.
Eradicate.
That's why I've drafted a bill, Save Women's Sports Act.
This attempt to erase transgender rights is brought to you by the Heritage Foundation. If you hate trans, we'll put money in your hands. And we'll take their money and make it the law of the land. We're the Republicans. We think you hate transgender people as much as we do.
Those are some happy, shiny bigots everywhere, aren't they? Elsewhere in sports, the International Olympic Committee, with the Paralympics coming, brought out some guidelines on how to better cover athletes who aren't men. This guidance came out earlier this week, given that the Paris Olympics will be, for the first time in Olympic history, a true 50-50 split. In fact, the number of women who will be competing at this year's Olympics will be slightly more than the men will be. But the one thing that has certain people, the conservatives, the anti-wokeists, everything's woke to them, all upset about this new guidance is this particular page. The IOC is calling for a moratorium on problematic language. They say that that some of the words to avoid include born male, born female, biologically female, genetically female, male to female, and female to male. Instead, use girl, boy, woman, man, transgender girl, transgender boy, transgender men, transgender woman, transgender person. And also try to avoid identified as he or she is a transgender, using terms like sex change and using the term transsexual. I know that last one may put a bee in some people's bonnet because they still use that term. And in other countries around the world outside the United States, that term is very much the vernacular. Now, one thing that interests me about what the IOC is trying to do here. On one side, the IOC is trying to look good, but the fact of the matter is the IOC is not innocent in all this. As a matter of fact, even with their framework for fairness that came out in 2022, the International Olympic Committee has basically been toothless against the bans of World Aquatics, World Athletics, UCI, and World Sailing, something our very own Stephanie knows a great deal about. If the IOC really wants to say something and really wants to send a message, what they really need to do is put some teeth behind the regulations that they say they claim to stand for. Now, you know, we've been showing a lot of bad news, but I want to throw up some good news right about now. And there was some good news in Lavon, France today. You know who this is. It's Charging Charlie Martin, your favorite endurance racer and mine. Lamborghini Super Trofeo Series Round 3 at the track she loves the most, Le Mans. And after taking over him from teammate Jason Keats, who held position well in 5th place, she went on a tear in the second half of this 45-minute event. She moved up from 5th to 4th to 3rd and ended up 2nd here, pressuring Alejandro Ortega of Mexico. Got around him on the final lap to put them in 2nd place, and more important, give them some needed points. The Keats Martin team is currently 3rd in the Lamborghini Super Trofeo Europe standings. Race number 2 is Saturday. It's a support event before the 92nd 24 hours. Charlie had this to say on her Facebook: I'm so proud right now with all the negativity and discrimination happening against trans people in sport and society. To stand on the podium at one of the greatest racing events in the world right now as an out and proud transgender woman fills me with emotions. Charlie, congratulations. And girl, do us a big favor. Stand on it Saturday and get that win. Also, it's Pride Month, and this week we got some Pride games coming on. But before, another shout out to a good friend of mine, offensive lineman, defensive lineman for the WFA Pros, Pittsburgh Passion, Jacqueline Taylor Cook, because the Passion did something they haven't done in a few years. They found a way to defeat the almighty 8-time champion Boston Renegades. Game in Pittsburgh last Saturday, and here's some highlights, and check out what Jackie was able to do. Pittsburgh up 7-0 in the first quarter. The Renegades trying for a field goal, and big number 65 blocks it. That's right. Jacqueline Taylor Cook, her 5th career block. She gets that big hand over it, and that's enough out to drive. Pittsburgh led as much as 26-7, but Boston, being the champs that they are, came back. It came down this sequence, 2nd down and goal. Jacqueline Cook making the stop. 3rd down and goal. The Passion defense looking like the old steel curtain. And then in 4th and goal, Danielle Moda, the quarterback for the Renegades, trying to find someone, crossed the line of scrimmage and got it intercepted. The Passion win 26-21. The regular season for the WFA ends later this weekend, and next week playoffs start. The Passion are definitely in, as are some other good friends of mine as well. Congratulations. A rough loss for my Connecticut Ambush last week to the Maine Mayhem. Congratulations to the Mayhem. That win punched their ticket into the WFA Division III playoffs. And a special shout out to Allie Raymond. Allie Raymond was a former Mayhem player, then moved out west. Played for the Utah Falcons of the Women's National Football Conference out there. Last season at age 60, she led the league in tackles as a middle linebacker. And I mean the entire league. She is 61 years old, 61 years young, rather, out loud, proud, and she's a transgender woman. And she was the second one of my trans sisters who I got to play against this season. Allie Raymond of the Maine Mayhem, congratulations. It was an honor to share a field with you and to knock each other around a little bit. And at some point on Transpositions, I want you here at this forum. Also, like I said, Pride games this week, big Pride games this week. And two of my friends are going to be playing against each other. Now, you saw Jacqueline Cook do her part to defeat the almighty Boston Renegades. Well, this week they play the Columbus Chaos. And that means Jackie gets to meet another one of our mutual friends, our good friend, Julie Day in this case, getting to meet Julie Day, offensive middle linebacker and running back for the Columbus Chaos. Julie All Day, as her nickname is. We'll be meeting each other Saturday night. It'll be a big game. It'll be a ton of fun. I can't wait to see it publicly on Chick-fil-A because I have a game of my own to consider. That's right. This week, the Connecticut Ambush has their Pride game. But before I get into a little bit more about that, I got to send a few shout outs in order. My first shout out goes to the coach I had for the team I played for last year. Today is this man's birthday. Meet Gary Magis. He was the head coach and offensive coordinator of Reapers women's football last season. My first season back in football after a very long absence, and my first season playing football since finding my truth, the season I never thought it would be. Sir, you made that season a joy, and I learned a great deal about football that I'm still applying as a player and hopefully this fall as a coach. Head coach Gary Magis, happy birthday, big fella. And hopefully, why don't you come out this Saturday, see what some of the kids that you taught, see how they're doing. You'll be glad you did. Overall, this season has been special for this kid and this kitten. I didn't think at the beginning of the year I'd be playing football for the Connecticut for any team, but when another good friend of mine, Taina Bear Smith, got in touch with me and said, "Hey, do you want to play this season? I know the Reapers don't have a team anymore, but do you want to play?" I said, "Oh yeah, I want to play." And I ended up at the doorstep of the Connecticut Ambush. And our Pride game is this week. And needless to say, thank you, Ambush, for a fun year where I got to do a lot of great things, including making a few big plays of my own. Case in point, let's take it back to last month. Hitting that pitch around left end. And go Carly go.
She just runs over defenders. And Carly
Rebellion,
Webb
a 28-yard
is going to take it 29 yards into the end zone for another touchdown.
Go ahead, that's fine. That was my first touchdown of the season, and it was a very fun run for me. However, we've had some great plays with the Ambush this year. We've had some awesome plays. Sam Valentino at quarterback was just nasty. Des Hilton on defense. Katia Bagwell was incredible. Anna Villafane, crazy and a great defensive player, anchoring that defense. I had 33 sisters this year. And I love and cherish all of them. And to have the chance to go in the battle one more again this Saturday night, I can't wait. Especially also because it's our Pride game. But if you want to know who made, in my mind, the play that made the year, it wasn't a play on the field. It was a play before things even got going. And it was made by this person. Her name is Caitlin Avery. She wears number 1, aptly numbered, to say the least. She's a quick-footed, sure-hand wide receiver for us, and she led the team in touchdown catches this year with 3. She battled some injuries this season, but never lost heart and never lost focus. But it was a play that she made before the start of the season that put things in a different focus. It was 2 weeks before the start of the season. We had played a preseason game, and we were at the sponsoring watering hole, and I was there nursing a cider, and then Caitlin pulled me aside and said, "Hey, Webb, can I talk to you for a minute?" I was like, "Sure, Caitlin, what's going on?" And the next words out of her mouth to say it was, "Listen, you're our sister now. You're our teammate now. And if anyone ever gives you any shit on that football field, just know that myself and this entire team will have your back." She didn't have to say that. She didn't have to do that. But I was glad she did. You see, those words set an important tone. It set a tone that being a transgender woman who plays a sport, and with all the demonization that me and mine get because of it, hearing those words mattered. Hearing those words was worth 10 touchdowns. Hearing those words coming from a teammate, coming from someone that you go into the fight with, mattered. And true to form, the entire team went right along with it. Imagine if Leah Thomas would have had that type of backup when she was at the University of Pennsylvania. She probably would have had a very different experience. Let this be a lesson to coaches, to teammates, and especially to teachers. Even though we're at the start of the summer break, school will be back in session before you know it. Let it be known that allyship is not something that you designate for yourself. It's something you earn by your deeds and your words. In that one moment, by word and deed, Caitlin Avery was a teammate and a sister, and the whole team went right along with it. You know something? In a world that seems to have a Riley Gaines born every minute, I'm certainly thankful as a sports journalist and as a competitive athlete that there's Caitlin Avery's around. For Transposition Sports, I'm Carly Chardonnay Webb.